Hey yogis, welcome back. Today is Asana workshop number 4. Today we'll be going over the seated and deepening postures of the Ashtanga primary series. So we'll be looking at proper alignment, things to look for in every body, knowing that every body is different, and then modifications that work for everybody. So like I said, we'll be going over the primary series. That includes about 10, 11, 12 poses, starting with Dandasana, which is the first seated posture in the primary series. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, yogis, so starting with Dandasana, like I said, the first seated posture in the primary series, also known as four-limbed staff pose. So let's break down how to enter this pose. So we enter it on an exhale. So we jump through to the seat on an exhale. We extend our feet forward out in front of us and we're flexing our toes. On the inhale breath, we push our palms into our mat. We're gazing down and forward so that our neck is in line with our spine and our drishti is our nose. So just gazing down and forward, I'm really pushing my palms. My belly button is reaching towards my spine. My legs are super active and engaged here, so my hamstrings are active, the backs of my knees are active, and my toes are really flexed. Heels might even lift. And then you take 5 breaths there. So this pose sets the blueprint for all forward folds, a pose that we revisit quite frequently in the primary series. So what does that mean? We're not forward folding in this pose, so why is it setting the blueprint? Well, your spine is straight and erect. You're sitting upright. Your sits bones are grounding into your mat. You're engaging as if you're about to forward fold. So we're focusing on folding instead of curling. So the spine is straight. We're not rounding, focusing on getting our head to our knees. Instead, we focus on sitting straight. We're inhaling there as if we're going to forward fold, and it's engaging our body to cue us to not curl. So our belly is going to move first towards our legs and then our ribs, and then we're folding that way instead of curling, like I said. It also demonstrates the movement of a forward fold that comes from the hips. So it's starting from the hips and this anterior tilt of the pelvis. So instead of, again, almost rounding and curling our low spine, we have that anterior tilt that is going to help us fold instead of curl. It keeps the legs strong and the hamstrings active. The backs of your knees, like I said, should be engaged as well as your feet. And also your thigh bone should be slightly internally rotated. We don't want the abdominals engaged here because it actually shortens the torso, restricts movement, and places potentially harmful stress on the spine. So your belly should feel long and soft with a sense of, hollowing, like your belly button is reaching towards your spine. And then finally, you want to pull the shoulders back, broaden the chest, and really expand across your collarbones. You might even hear an instructor cue that. Modifications for this pose. So although it seems simple, it appears simple, students can still lack mobility and flexibility here. It still is a challenge. So a couple opportunities for modifications. If you have students, focus on your verbal cueing modifications first. So really, if students are going to be rounding their low back, so they're not sitting fully upright, have them walk their hips back. We don't necessarily want to move the flesh of our body away because that can overstretch the hamstrings. So instead of cueing that, just cue them to walk their hips back until they naturally feel their hips bones ground into their mat and then flex their toes. If the student is still rounding their spine, they might be able to elevate their hips, maybe not on a block that might be a bit too high, depending on the student though. Maybe just a blanket and you can pick your height with that then. You might need blocks then to ground your palms as their arms might not be long enough to reach their mat. The only thing with that you want to be mindful of is once their hips are elevated, their legs will have the opportunity to hyperextend. So really focusing on their leg engagement, making sure that their legs aren't hyperextending and that they're fully active there, but that will give them the lift to fully lengthen their spine. All right, yogis, so the next pose in the primary series is Paschimottanasana, or seated forward bend. So like we just discussed, Dandasana set the tone for this pose. So we now know the proper alignment to enter and hinge into this pose safely. So let's go ahead and look at it. So we're seated, and of course, like all of the primary series moving forward, we're doing jump backs and jump throughs into these poses. So we find our seat. We're pulling our legs back, our inner groins back into our hips. We take an inhale breath here, and then on our exhale, we're going to lengthen forward. So we're moving from our hips though, not from our waist. So I'm not just rounding my spine and trying to get my forehead to my shins or my knees. I'm inhale, lengthening, and just like the action we discussed in Dandasana, our belly's gonna reach for our thighs first. We can walk our fingertips forward, and maybe this is as deep as you go. If needed, you can find a strap around the balls of your feet, and then you can use that to help deepen the pose. Students might also need to elevate their hips in this pose as well. So just like in Dandasana, maybe a folded blanket. If your student is extremely stiff, they might even need a rolled blanket underneath their knees. Hey yogis, so next in our seated and deepening postures is Paschimottanasana, or upward plank pose, reverse plank, whatever you want to call it. This pose strengthens the arms, wrists, legs, and core, and also stretches the shoulders, chest, and front ankles. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So starting in Dandasana, again, this time we'll extend our fingertips slightly behind us, and we always want our palms super grounded and fingertips facing our body. So we don't want the fingertips facing this way or even this way. You're going to injure, especially this way, you can hyperextend your arms and that will really hurt. So pushing into your palms, you're going to point your toes, take an inhale, and then lift your hips towards the sky. So I'm gazing upwards right now. My toes are reaching towards your mat. And then I'm gonna relax my bum. So I don't wanna engage my glutes. Instead, I wanna use my core to really keep lifting my hips, keep gripping my mat with my fingertips, and then if it's comfortable, I can begin to extend my neck back if it doesn't compress my neck or cause injury. Students should not do this pose if they have a wrist injury or a neck injury, but there is an option for modification here, and that's just reverse tabletop. So instead of extending our legs fully forward, we're just going to find our feet on our mat. And then same idea, palms on our mat, fingertips facing our body. And then inhale to lift the hips. This pose is a little bit easier, a little bit less complicated because I'm able to use more of my leg strength here to keep my hips lifted. Again, I'm not going to engage my glutes. Just keep breathing here, and then still the option to extend the neck back if that's comfortable. And then slowly release. So like I said, students will feel that a lot in their shoulders. It's a great shoulder stretch, also the fronts of the ankles and the wrists. Hey yogis, so the next pose in our series is Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana, or half-bound lotus fold. This pose has a powerful effect on the liver and spleen. It also opens the hips and knees and stretches the spine. So let's go ahead and take a look. So once again, moving from Dandasana. Some students find it helpful to find a knee or hip warm up before that. You can do that either with a figure 4 pose, just kind of opening and generally rotating the hips and knees, or if you have the mobility, you can find a little bind here and just gently open, warming up for Lotus. It's a bit of an intense stretch on your knees. So once you're warmed up and ready, I'm going to do it on my left side. So I'll guide my left foot up and in, and then moving into half Lotus, I want my heel, my foot close to my navel. I want to really pull this foot up towards the top of my thigh. And then once I find it, just gently allow my knee towards the ground. I don't want to push my knee down. You can cause too much pressure in the knee and pull something there, and that's no fun. Take an inhale, and then on an exhale breath, I'm going to loop my arm around. You might need a strap here or just use anything, or maybe just keep your forearm on your back. But if you have the full bind, your peace sign fingers will bind around your big toes. So my left fingertips are binding on my left toes. Inhale, breath to length. And then exhale, breath to fold. Again, we're not focusing on how deeply we're folding. We're still finding length, just like any other forward fold, lengthening on each inhale and then releasing, surrendering a little bit deeper on each exhale for those 5 breaths. And then inhale to rise out of it, slowly release your bind, and very carefully, slowly release your Lotus as well. So obviously the half Lotus stretch is a deep stretch for anyone. Modifications include seated figure four, so same idea, still a knee and hip stretch. Just instead of being in half lotus, I'm going to have my left foot towards my right thigh. You can find a bind here if you want, maybe just reaching for your right hip, or just focus on keeping your shoulders down, because in this pose we don't want this shoulder opening up towards the left. So I want my left shoulder guiding slightly down in space, squaring my shoulders towards my mat, and then keep lengthening my torso forward. So same thing, inhale breath here, and then exhale breath fold. My belly's reaching forward first, and then my ribs, and then my chest. Take 5 breaths in whichever variation suits you, and then move on to the next pose. All right, yogis, next in our series is Trianga Mukha Paschimottanasana, or one leg fold bend. This pose opens the hips and hamstrings and also the core muscles. So let's go ahead and take a look. So with both legs extended back, we're going to bend one knee, and the front of our shin is going to be on our mat. So to do that, so my legs are pretty big and a little bit meaty, so my hip might lift off my mat. You can physically move your calf muscle and flesh away so that you can find both sits bones on the mat. If that's still not happening for you, you might need to elevate your other hip. You can use a blanket or anything like that. You want to make sure that both of your thighs are in one line. So my thighs are parallel. My left knee, my bent knee, is coming directly out of my hip. So it's not projecting out to the side or kind of pigeoning in. And then I'm stretching and really breathing into the top, the front of that ankle. Really flex that right toe. Same thing as all of our other forward bends. Inhale for length, and then exhale to fold forward. Again, it doesn't matter how far deep you go. And maybe you're finding that Ashtanga bind with the palm on the wrist or forearm and slowly moving up. Or maybe you're just gently glancing forward. Make sure that your neck is in line with your spine, so long neck here, gazing down and forward. Take 5 breaths. Continue to inhale, find length, and then exhale to fold and surrender a little bit deeper. And then to come out, just gently lean to one side, release, and then you might want to tap out your knees, allow the fluid, your blood, to move back through that knee and find more space. All right, yogis, continuing through our seated and deepening in the primary series. Next is Janu Shirshasana, or head to knee forward bend pose. This pose stretches the spine, the hamstrings, the shoulders, and also kind of just generally opens, the lower body, gently opening the hips and the knees as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So similar to a modification for the last pose, so we're bending our knee and then we're bringing our heel close to our body. So close, as close as you can. And then your foot is resting on your thigh. Flex that extended leg toes. And then instead of folding here, so my torso isn't directly over my extended leg, I'm going to rotate my upper body just a little bit so that my navel is almost centered on that thigh. So we'll take an inhale breath here and then an exhale to fold over that extended leg. Again, making sure that I'm not rounding my spine or, shortening my upper torso, just really breathing space here. And then finding the bind. Modifications includes using a strap on that extended leg so I can put it around the ball of my foot. Just making sure that you're not forcing your body into the pose, really listening to your edge and staying there. Any students who have knee injuries, you don't want to fully flex that bent knee. You can also option to rest it on a blanket there, and that might help as well. So as we keep moving through the primary series, next we have Marichasana. So Marichasana, we have variations A, B, C, and D. Today we'll just be going over A and C. These are both challenging variations of a forward fold because they do involve a twist and a bind as well. They feel awkward at first, but once you find that sweet spot, they're great and absolutely amazing poses to open the shoulders, the chest, the hips, and the back. These poses internally stimulate digestion, so they compress the intestines and your internal abdominal organs, and it also calms the brain. while compressing your organs, it's directly benefiting your kidneys as well. So lots of internal organs benefits that help relieve constipation, get your body moving and everything flowing as it should be. So let's go ahead and take a look at the physical asanas themselves. We'll start with Marichyasana A. Turn this way. So I'm doing it on my right side. I'll bend my right knee. You want to make sure that you have a little space between your foot and your thigh because you are leaning forward and you're going to bind your arm. So flex, make sure both sits bones are grounded. I'm going to take an inhale breath, reach my arms up, and then exhale, reach my arms forward, and then this arm is going to reach around. You can use this arm for support too to really deepen your bind. And then you can find a strap, anything, if you don't already have this bind. You're gonna keep this leg active, your left toes, my left leg is extended, inhale breath, and then exhale release, again folding only to wherever is comfortable for you. Maybe that's just right here, maybe you're holding something to help your bind. I'm really feeling this in my shoulders, I'm opening through my chest, I'm reaching my chest forward. So once you have the bind, you're not just collapsing and allowing your body to just hold the bind there. Keep opening your chest, and on each inhale, keep lengthening, and each exhale, keep deepening. Then an inhale breath to release. You can reach your arms up, you can shake it out, whatever you need here. Marichyasana C is the same variation, but an opposite twist. So, inhale to length, and then exhale to twist. My spine has not been feeling the depth of this pose lately, so I won't do it in full variation. But if you are, it's the same type of bind, and you'll bind this arm around this shin, kind of like that if I was around. So this is an option for a variation here. Ground your back palm, so my right palm is really grounded, and then I'm just gently twisting. I'm opening my chest here. Keep twisting, 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 chin reaching towards my right shoulder, and then stretch your eyes even further. Also an option, you can hug your knee in because this is still a little bit of a deep twist here. Students might not have that. You can hug your knee. That also helps support and keep your spine long, so I feel the crown of my head reaching even further upwards, and then still focusing on keeping that left leg, your extended leg, flexed and active. Marichyasana A modifications. You can't just hug your knee in and gently fold, or again, use a strap or anything that you have that resembles a strap. All right, guys, so continuing through the primary series, the next pose we have is Navasana, or boat pose, notoriously known for long counts and long holds, and everyone's most favorite pose in yoga. This pose strengthens the abdominals. Obviously, your core is super active, you're engaged, your abductors, your psoas, your hip flexors. It also improves balance and digestion. Also stretching the hamstrings. If you're lengthening your legs, there's also variations that use a strap around your feet, so you're really focusing on stretching into the hamstrings. It also strengthens the spine, and then there are some internal benefits. It stimulates the kidneys, the thyroid, and your intestines. So let's go ahead and take a look and break down the physical aspect of the pose. So you find your sits bones on your mat, and you bend your knees, your toes are on your mat, palms behind your thighs, and then you slowly begin to shift your weight back so that there's little to no weight in your toes. Your core is active and engaged, and then notice if your shoulders are reaching towards your ears. You want to relax your shoulders down and engage your back muscles. If this is comfortable and easy, you can slowly begin to allow your calves to become parallel with your mat, and then maybe reach your fingertips forward. You're really extending through your fingertips. Keep reaching your chest up and forward, so be mindful if you begin to round your spine. Keep reaching your chest forward and engage in your core. And then if that's comfortable and easy, you can slowly begin to straighten one leg and then the other, and this is where we'll see the hamstring flexibility come in. You might not have that. You can option to find a strap there, but the issue with the strap is that you're then using less of your core to hold your body there, so just be mindful of that in the intention of your pose for that day. So again, just reaching, engaging, breathing here, and then coming out after you've taken 5 breaths. So as we keep moving through the primary series, we're just going to touch on crow pose because it does enter as a transition in the primary series. So let's go ahead We'll just break it down. This pose is a wrist strengthener and arm balance, so you're really engaging your core, your arms and shoulders are working, your abs are working, really your entire body's working. So let's go ahead and look at it. Yogis who should be mindful of this pose. People who have wrist injuries, just be mindful, really warm up your wrists, find tabletop, rock forward and back, flip your fingertips to face your body, maybe even flip your palms. And then there are also some other exercises you can do, just circling out your wrists. If you use your pointer and your thumb, you can find there's this little separation that you'll find in your wrist. If you just feel a separation in between your bones and then begin to circle out your wrist, it'll get the fluid moving in your wrist and help keep your wrist healthy. This is really something we should do every practice because we're on our wrists so much as we transition through down dog in between every pose. So let's go ahead and break it down. If you're nervous or uncomfortable with falling forward, you can also always place something down in front of you, whether that's a bolster, a pillow, a blanket, whatever you have at home. Your palms will find your mat shoulder distance apart, and you're going to lift your hips. There are a couple different ways to enter this, so I'll go over all three. If you're a beginner, it's not necessary that your knees come super high onto your triceps, although that eventually will help you, but this is a bone stacking pose. So if I ground my palms and then bend into my elbows and then bend onto my knees, come into the balls of my feet, and then just bring my knees towards the backs of my elbows, the low part of my triceps, you want to bring your gaze down and forward, not in between your palms, because if you're gazing directly down, then you're going to fall down. So if I'm gazing down and forward, shift my weight forward, grip my mat with my fingertips. So you can lift one foot and then maybe the other. And then once both feet are lifted, kick your feet towards your glutes and keep lifting higher. And then slowly come out the way you came in. Once that becomes easy, you can begin to work your knees higher up onto your triceps. It'll find easier, more lift, and also an easy transition from crow pose to crane pose, which is the same arm balance just with straight arms. If neither of those are comfortable for you, there also is a variation where your knees just simply hug your triceps. So same thing, gaze down and forward, grip your mat, and then instead of resting my knees here, I'm gonna hug them in. So shift forward, and then my toes begin to lift. And then slowly come out the way that you came back in.